I'm Josh Evans, and I love to help businesses build the right culture within their organizations so they can be more profitable. Do you want more engaged employees? Do you want your company to be more productive? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm going to share with you the tools that I've used with hundreds of companies varying in size from 60,000 person conglomerates down to 5-person teams. So get ready and join me so we can build the right culture for your business.
Good morning, I'm Joshua Evans, and welcome back to my show. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to have you back with me. So I had a really weird conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and used to be a client, now they're friends. And we were having this conversation over lunch, and they were talking about having to let someone go. And the whole conversation is like, we need them to move on from our organization. We're going to have to release this individual. I don't like letting people go. And he kept using all of these synonyms for what he really meant to soften it. I was like, you mean you're going to fire somebody, don't you? He's like, well, yeah, but we don't use the word fire, right? That has such a negative connotation. We need them to move on and find another work. It's like, so they're not going to be allowed at your office anymore. Like, yeah, I was like, so you're firing them. And it took me about 5 minutes of convincing him. I was like, no, what you're doing is actually firing him. He just didn't want to admit it. And he goes, well, we use these kind of terms because it softens it for the employee. I was like, but does it really soften it for the employee? Because here, just check this out. Imagine you're working for somebody, and the manager pulls you into their office, and they go, all right, well, we're going to have to let you go. They can say it as nicely or as softly as they want, but what that individual really hears, if they actually understand what's being said to them, what they really hear is, you're fired, right? You're fired. You're not going to be working here anymore. We don't want you here, right? No matter what it is, they know that they're no longer welcome at their job. That's what it is. You're actually firing them. So why do all these managers, and it's like it's in the handbook now, right? HR handbooks now have all these things of things to say. Don't say you're fired, right? Let them down gently. And I'm sure a lot of it is to prevent any sort of repercussion or some sort of violent outburst from the individual, but they know what's going on. The employee knows they're being fired, right? They know that they are no longer employed at that company. And so no matter how softly you break it to them, they're still going to have that negative feeling, right? It's still going to impact them. They're still going to be bad. So who is it for? And I sat here and berated my former client, now friend. I berated him. I was like, well, hold on a second. You're only using these terms. They're not for them. It doesn't actually soften the blow. Tomorrow, they're not working there. Tomorrow, they're not being paid, right? Who is it really for? And I got him to admit it's actually for the managers. These softened terms allow the managers to do it. They're more likely to follow through with it. They're more likely to go through the whole process. The real reason we don't use the word you're fired anymore is because we want the managers who are still there to follow through with it, right? Because there's this negative connotation with firing somebody. Now you're that hard-nosed manager that just cares about making $1, blah, blah, blah. But if it's a for-profit company, that's what you should be really worried about. So my whole question becomes, right? If you're going to fire somebody, how do you need to do it? And I decided if you're going to fire somebody or allow them to move on to another organization where they have better needs and better fits. No. If you're going to fire somebody, do it benevolently and directly. That's it. It's that simple, right? How would you if I was going to be let go from a job, I'd want my manager to sit down with me and have a conversation. Like, look, you probably know something's up. This is out of nowhere. We've already had conversations about what was going on and what you need to fix. So Josh, we're going to have to let you go. That's what I would expect it here. That would be respect, right? We're going to have to fire you. You're going to have to go work somewhere else. I'd want them to be as direct as possible, because if they leave some sort of area open for interpretation, like this it doesn't seem to be working. What does that mean? Does that mean we're going to switch roles and I'll be the manager and you can work in my position? Or what does this isn't working mean? It's like a soft relationship breakup. Nobody wants to say, I'm breaking up with you anymore. They're like, maybe we should see other people. Or maybe they ghost you. Ghosting somebody in a relationship now is the equivalent of just making their key card not work when they show up at the office, and you're like, boop, boop. Why is the little dot real still red? Hasn't turned green. Hey, my key card's not working. Like, yeah, you guessed it. Look, the problem I have with this is I think we've gotten to such a ridiculous place where we're worried about our own feelings when we're firing somebody. And as a manager, as a leader, as somebody in your organization that's responsible for their team, you have the responsibility to not only do the firing in a benevolent way, but to do it directly. If you're going to fire somebody, you have to do it benevolently and you have to do it directly. I worked for this organization that was a great organization a long time ago, a long, long time ago. And the cool thing about this organization is they gave people a chance, right? They gave me a chance in my sales role, and I did pretty well, right, until the company itself got sold. And one of the other guys that was in our group, we'll call him Stan. Well, Stan, he was working hard, but he wasn't making his numbers. He just wasn't doing everything he needed to do. He was doing everything he thought he needed to do. But the management was really good, right? The VP that he reported to approached him and goes, look, your numbers aren't where we need them to be for the past 4 or 5 months. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to do this, and this, and I need you to document all of those things, and I need you to really start going after this, and this, and these clients, and these are the numbers that you need to reach. So I expect you to have a certain number of meetings with clients. I expect you to have a certain number of deals in your pipeline. This is what I want you to do, and I think it'll help you be successful. But I need you to start turning this around. It needs to happen in the next 3 months. Otherwise, we're going to have a more difficult conversation where you won't be working here. See, that's a very direct thing to say. And so few people will do that because it is uncomfortable. But those uncomfortable conversations can lead to changes. They can lead to that person getting better at their job. They can lead to that person taking the right steps to actually improve their situation. And you have to do it early enough. You can't come to them 2 weeks before you're planning on firing them or letting them go and go, hey, can you do this and that a little bit more? We'd appreciate it. No, you need to be direct. Like, if you don't do these things, if you don't see success in these areas, you are not going to be working here anymore. The more direct you are with them, the better off they are. Because if it's something they know that they can't handle, they can't do, they'll start looking for another job so they can have some sort of a cushion or a parachute when you ask them to hop out of your building. All right, so if you're going to fire somebody, do it benevolently and do it directly. And so eventually they ended up letting Stan go. So this is Stan, we told you and you couldn't reach these benchmarks, and this is not the place for you. We have to fire you. We cannot have you working here for us anymore. Now, we appreciate your work. We'd love to help you in getting placements somewhere else. And they even offered him, this is the coolest thing, they offered him use of some of our technical writers to help him work on his resume. Like, that's amazing. You're having a professional take a look at your resume to tell you how you can improve it. And I don't know if you took him up on that or not, but it was offered. That sort of a thing. Fast forward about a week later, anybody that's ever gotten fired from a job, they go through, it's a traumatic experience. People liken it to losing a family member, right? Or a good friend. And so it feels horrible, right? It's this pit of your stomach feeling, I'm sure of it. And this organization that I was with, it was very intelligent. They had somebody call to check on him. Now, it wasn't his manager that fired him. It wasn't one of the people that reported to him. No, they had somebody that was at his level, right? Call him. Say, hey, Stan, how you doing? How are things going? And just had a conversation with him. Allowed him to vent a little bit. Allowed him to decompress a little bit more to really get through it. Now, that's a level of support a lot of organizations don't offer. Having somebody from the organization call, and I heard the conversation when the manager suggested it to this, or the VP suggested it to the other manager, hey, why don't you give Stan a call just to check on him, see if things are going all right, and just talk to him. Maybe if you have to go to lunch or something, that's probably good too. But when you work with somebody for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? It feels like family, and all of a sudden you're telling somebody that you can't hang out with their family. You need to do it in a benevolent way. You need to do it with kindness. I mean, otherwise you're just an evil manager, right? Kindness isn't being too soft on the firing. Kindness is following through with it and being supportive afterwards. Now, this is going to come up because I absolutely hate them and I think they're ridiculous. PIPs, performance improvement plans, are a huge joke. I'll tell you why I think so. Performance improvement plans are really not done to improve employees. Because if you ask any HR manager, it's CYA. They're just covering their chance of liability, right? Or of having somebody file a lawsuit against them. That's what a PIP is. That way they can say, oh, we officially did this. But here's the thing. If you look at the numbers, people that are put on PIPs, only about, I think it's like less than 12% of people who are on performance improvement plans actually end up improving enough to come back to the company. And so I had this conversation. I got into an argument with this person, right? This HR director. I was like, PIPs are useless. And they go, they're not useless. They give everybody time. And I understand the idea of that, right? It gives the organization time to focus on why this person isn't working and start looking for somebody who would work in that role. And then it also gives the individual who's on the PIP time to polish up their resume, start taking interviews, and quietly leave. But the problem is, I'm saying how we need to be direct with our firings, and this is like the softest one yet. We're going to go ahead and just let you linger. That's terrible. That's terrible. It's like if I was to break up with a girl or something like that, I'd be like, we're not going to see each other anymore. But if you want, you can still come over for dinner, and we can watch one movie a week together. That's terrible. Well, I'm giving her a chance to go and, find another guy, and I'm giving myself a chance to kind of get used to her not being there all the time. Wait a second. That's too soft. It's too soft. Look, if somebody's not working in a role, there's some things that you can do, right, that you need to do. And up front, right, you need to tell them what needs to be improved and give them a chance for it to improve. A huge proponent of having quarterly reviews with all of your employees. And if you do them every quarter, they're not nearly as long. I know you think it's going to take up time, but no, it gives them time to improve. It gives them time to adjust and adapt and to change into the employee that we need or that we want. Here's the thing. If we beginning of the year, hey, here's the goals for the year, start heading towards it. And then 3 months later, I meet with them, hey, check it out. You're doing a good job at this, this, and this. Really need you to focus on this and this. You haven't been doing that, and we talked about that at the beginning of the year. But I want to make sure that you see that these are two things that are very important to our team and to our organization. I want you to handle. And now the employee knows what they need to improve. And then 3 months after that, boom. It's the mid-year review. Hey, look at that. You're actually doing these two things. That's great. Or if they're not, this is one more opportunity for you to be like, look, you need to do these things. They're important enough to where if you don't do them, we're going to need to let you go. We're going to need to fire you and find somebody that can do those things. But see, now you've told them what needs to be improved multiple times. They don't just have this windfall. Guess what? You don't do anything right, so we're putting you on a PIP for 90 days. You need to tell your employees what they need to improve. If you don't, it's kind of your fault if they don't improve. As a manager, as the leader, as the person that's in power, if you don't tell your employees what they need to improve upon, it's your fault when you have to fire them because they're not performing where you need them. You have to be direct with them in all situations. The sooner you're honest with them about what needs to improve, the sooner you give them the opportunity to improve. And you're not stuck with these situations where you have to tiptoe around the fact that you're letting them go. Be very specific. We're going to have to let you go. You are no longer going to be employed here. We are having to fire you. Don't say something like, I'm not sure if this is working. No, that opens up the discussion. Now they're going to try and defend themselves. I think this is working great. I think you need to give me more time. All of a sudden you're in this discussion where they're having to fight for their life and they're just drowning anyway. Be direct with it. It's hard, right? As the manager, it's hard to let somebody go. And as the person hearing it, it's hard as well. But don't sit there and just draw the whole thing out. No, be direct. Look, I'm sorry. You're being fired today. You're being like, we cannot have you working here anymore. When you're direct, right? When you're super direct with somebody like that, they may take it badly, but they'll appreciate that you didn't beat around the bush, okay? Because too often, I think that's what we do. We don't really want to say it, so we hope they kind of get the gist of it, and then we slide them the paperwork. So that's the first thing. Be direct, okay? The second thing, tell them why they didn't make the cut. And they probably have already heard it a couple of times before. They probably know what they didn't quite live up to, but you need to tell them anyway. That's the hardest part, right? Look, you didn't report correctly. You were showing up late all the time. These are things that you should have already broached the subject months before this, okay? And given them the opportunity to improve, and then now they haven't improved. Just tell them why. It helps them. When they know what they did incorrectly, when they're going to their next job, they're going to know what they need to make sure they do. Like, I'm going to actually respond to people in a timely manner via email, or I'm actually going to show up to meetings on time. You're doing them a favor by telling them why you're breaking up with them, right? And which takes me back to this, years ago when I was in college, I dated this girl for about 2 years, right? And she broke up with me. And I had no idea why. I was so confused and taken aback, and she was super direct, so I got to give her that, right? She's like, bam, breaking up with me. And like an idiot, I said, why? Why? Just tell me why. Bless her heart, because what she proceeded to do was go through a list that obviously she had been working on reasons to break up with me. I didn't listen enough. I didn't pay attention to her. I spent too much time with my friends. I wasn't committed. She went on, and I just sat there and took this shellacking. I mean, every word's like, ooh, ow, ooh. And like, she piled it on probably a lot thicker than she should have, right? And it was a lot of emotional baggage that she decided to unload at that moment. So I'm sure she actually felt a whole lot better. I, on the other hand, totally regretted asking her why. One or two reasons would have been fine. But I got a list of about 24 on why I was a terrible boyfriend. So, all that to say that at least I knew why. Because I knew I couldn't argue with her. And because I knew why this person didn't want to spend time with me, the next time I met a woman, right? I knew some of the characteristics that I needed to work on. Some of the things that I needed to focus on, that I needed to improve upon. So while at the time it was very hard to hear this woman berate me for what a horrible human being I apparently had been, it really contributed to the person I am now, the person that I am with my wife. And it's funny because knowing the why behind why you're not working either in a relationship or in an organization, knowing the why there, right? What's the reasons behind it will help you improve yourself. So as a manager, when you let somebody go, tell them why. Maybe they weren't a good fit on the team. Maybe their personality clashed with too many people. Maybe they stirred up trouble. I don't know. But tell them why. It'll allow them to kind of think about it and make improvements for the future in their own life. It helps them, right? Third thing you need to do, right? If you're gonna fire somebody in a benevolent way directly, you need to offer support afterwards, right? As I talked about with that other organization earlier, they actually gave the guy help writing his resume. I know other organizations that wrote recommendations, which is kind of weird, right? Writing a recommendation. Writing a recommendation for somebody you're letting go is very, very interesting to me. I don't know if I would ever do that or if I would ever suggest that to somebody, but it's an interesting idea. I think introducing them to other people you think that they might be better suited to work for is a good idea. But any support you can offer them to help them get a leg up moving forward, it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. Just because, as we said, it's a traumatic experience, right? Somebody gets fired, not let go, fired from a job. It's a traumatic experience. You don't know where to turn, right? You hope they have a support system in place. You hope they have people that can help them do these sorts of things and update their LinkedIn profile and get their resume polished. But I think offering that sort of support to them, at least you did that. I think you're erring on the side of kindness there instead of just like releasing them to the wild. And so I think too many organizations that they'll softly let somebody move on or softly release somebody and then just go quiet and disappear into the night as if they never worked there. And then what's this whole thing? Have you all noticed when somebody gets let go, like all of a sudden you can't say their name anymore. All of a sudden, like we can't say their name, we can't talk about them. Somebody that's no longer here worked on this. Guys, who are we protecting at that moment, right? Who on earth are we protecting? I don't even know. Like it seems ridiculous. It seems totally absurd that when somebody leaves an organization, whether they're fired or they'll get a better job, that they're like dead to us now. Guys, that's just ridiculous. Anyway, that long tangent. I don't see why they're dead to us. I'm sure some people have a reason. It seems kind of ridiculous. Maybe you don't want to stir up bad feelings or emotions or questions. I don't know. But don't act like the person never existed. That's just silly. It's just silly. I one time had our CEO of this company I work for. When I gave my notice, I had to have meetings with him and then this account team to hand over some of the larger accounts I've been working on. And he wouldn't even acknowledge my presence after I decided to leave the company. I was like, I'm giving my 2 weeks. I want to hand over everything. I want to make sure that this transition is good for the company and for the client because I care about both. Just because I leave an organization doesn't mean I no longer care about it. Just because I leave a client doesn't mean I don't no longer care about that client. But in this moment, I wanted to make sure that everything, that all the knowledge that I had, all the intrinsic stuff around it, would help in this transition. They would take on this information. They would be able to keep serving the client well. And so somehow, now I'm dead to the client. We were in a meeting. He wouldn't even look at me. He would look at the guy to my left and like ask a question of me and then skip over me and look at the guy to my right and then come back to the guy to my left. Like I didn't exist anymore. All of a sudden I'm gone. And it's crazy to me. It was so crazy to me that somebody would just automatically, I'm no longer exist. Like dust in the wind. Anyway, that's ridiculous. Coming back, right? So, benevolently, directly firing somebody, offer support afterwards. It makes you a better person. It'll help them get moving along too, right? And then the last thing, and I saw this at that company I worked for a long time ago, have somebody reach out to them. Not the manager that fired them, not even some other manager, and not somebody that reported them. Somebody at their level, a peer of theirs. Have them call and just check in. Following up like that, it can keep them not only emotionally stable, but understand it's not that they're forgotten or lost. It's not that they were never cared about. It's just that we want them to move on. And if you're going to help them in that transition, have somebody reach out to them. A lot of times we lose that personal interaction, right? All of a sudden, I don't have any coworkers. I don't have anybody I work with. I don't have anybody to talk to. As much as we don't want to believe it, we develop these relationships with all of our coworkers, with all the people that we work with. And then when all those people are gone, all these relationships have just disappeared. We can't let that happen. We really shouldn't. It's a detriment to everybody that's involved. And so what I would suggest is make sure they have somebody reach out, right? Just gently. Maybe even take them to lunch or something like that, but just do it softly. Hey, just want to check in and see how things are going. What are you up to? Hey, do you want me to take a look at your resume for you? You know, I know this guy at this company. If they weren't a total Nimrod, right? You'd be like, hey, maybe I can introduce you over there. Or I know this recruiter. They might be able to help you find a fun, good place. I think those sorts of things are really beneficial. And that way you're doing it from a place of kindness, right? From a place of caring, right? Some good-natured management. Anyway, let's go over those again. If you're going to fire somebody, you need to do it benevolently and directly. So first, be direct. Actually tell them they're being fired. 2, tell them why. Give them the reason so they can improve themselves. Next, offer them support. And 3rd, have somebody reach out to them later. Just to follow up. Just to make sure they're okay. Just to help them in their transition. Right? Don't just set them adrift at sea. Right? This is an elderly Eskimo or Inuit. We don't just push them off on an iceberg. Right? Actually follow up. How would you want to be treated if they let you go? Would you want just severed ties? Of course not. Help them make that transition. Do it benevolently. Of course you have to be direct, but do it benevolently. Anyway, I just want to thank you so much for joining me on my show today. It was kind of an interesting topic, if only because I just had this conversation. Don't softly let people go or help them be released or move on. No. If you're going to fire somebody, fire them, but do it benevolently and directly. Hey, you know what? If anybody here has any questions or would love to be on my show or wants to chat about anything I do, helping organizations have the most phenomenal company cultures they can, go ahead and reach out to me. You can reach me at info@joshuaemevans.com or hit me up on any of the social medias at enthusiasticyou, YOU. And I look forward to seeing you next week on my podcast. Have a great day, and we'll talk to y'all soon.